Okay, good evening, everyone. So in the last session, we have seen the EC2 topic, right? Like how to create the EC2 instances and what are the components we use at the time of creation. Just we covered everything, but at the time of EC2 instance creation, we have seen about Windows operating system, right? We have seen like how to create the Windows EC2 instance, and we seen like how to log in to the Windows EC2 instance from anywhere across the globe. And at the time of creating the instance, we have seen auto assign public IP address. And we have seen the purchasing model as a on demand, and we have selected the tenancy option as a shared. In this session, let's talk about how to create a Linux EC2 instance. And remember, the process or the concept of creating any EC2 instance with any operating system is going to be the same. Depends on the operating system characteristics, the way how we use is different. Okay. And what does that mean? To log into the Windows machine, we have used RDP protocol, right? And to log into Linux machine, we have to use something called SSH, Secure Shell Protocol. That's what we are going to cover in this today's session. Okay, now what I do is, so I will use something like the same thing. Let me copy paste and I will update what all we are going to do. Just we will create an EC2 instance as per the below requirements. Region is going to be Northern Virginia. Operating system, any Linux flavor, any Linux one. But I use Amazon Linux 2023. So Amazon, because actually the Linux is an open source kind of, I think the kernel, right? They took that and they modified whatever they want. So we have multiple things like Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The same way we do have Amazon Linux 2023. We do have Amazon Linux 2, Amazon Linux 1 earlier, but Amazon Linux 1 obsolete. Amazon Linux 2 is available. That's outdated one. This is the latest one. Storage, no need of 30 GB. Let's go with 12 GB or minimum required. Whatever is the minimum required storage space that we need to select. Key pair. If you remember in the last session, we created one key pair, right? We created one key pair with this name at the time of creating the Windows EC2 instance. The same key pair we can use for any EC2 instance, the same region. If I switch to a different region, then I have to use the key pair which is available in that region. Means key pairs, security groups are a region specific. Obviously, everything is going to be the region specific whenever the service is a region based service. And coming to the security group is a firewall, right? Which will allow the traffic as per our requirement. In our case, the Linux machine. So allowing RDP traffic is of no use. So what we have to do, we have to allow SSH. The port number is a 22. SSH from anywhere so that I can log into the Linux machine using SSH protocol from anywhere across the globe. So first, let us start the process of creation. While it is getting created, then we will talk about the SSH protocol and usernames, passwords, and all the things. Okay, right. So how to do that? So first log into your Amazon account, then switch to the required region. I am not using Northern Virginia because it has some resources created and running. That's why I prefer using Northern California. But I recommend you guys to use Northern Virginia or any single, stick to a single region. Don't use all regions and don't get confused at the time of deleting the resources. So click on EC2 so that it will switch to the EC2 service. Then, and you can compare with the Windows instance creation process. You feel both are same. Click on instances here. We have no instances running in this specific region. Launch instances. Name, I will say my Linux server is going to be the name of my EC2 instance. Scroll down, see here, Amazon Linux OS, Ubuntu, Windows, Red Hat, SUSE Linux, Debian. And if I click here, it will display a lot of AMIs. Based on the selection of the AMI, you will get the operating system. I will choose this one, Amazon Linux 2023. And here there is another Amazon Linux 2023. What is the difference between these two? Here you will get kernel 6.1, whereas here you will get kernel 6.12 version. That is the only difference. Okay, so here click on select. If you want Red Hat, just select this one. If you want something else, scroll down and you can select. Okay, so here, if you read the information about the AMI, so you can see this is the AMI we have, which we have selected, which is a free tier eligible. And here, what is the username? Username is not administrator for Linux machines. EC2-user is the username for Amazon Linux 2. If you go for some different Linux OS, the username might be different. But here you can see the name or the username of that particular machine. So then instance type, I will go with the T2.micro because it is a free tier eligible. Let me choose this one, which I downloaded in the last session. You can't re-download the same key pair again and again. Click on edit at network settings. We have only one network, which is a default network. Subnet, this time I will choose no preference. So that instance will be created in one of these two availability zones or in one of those two subnets. Auto assign public IP, by default it is enabled. If you don't enable, your instance will not get a public IP and you can't access that instance from your home. So I want to create a security group. I will say Linux SSH from anywhere. So just a name of the security group. Description, I will say to allow SSH traffic from anywhere. Just a meaningful description to identify the purpose of this particular EC2 instance. And if you scroll down, you can see by default SSH traffic is getting allowed. SSH traffic, port range is a 22, source type from anywhere. Configure storage 8 GB is the minimum required. You can go with 12, 15, 100, 1000, 16,000 GB, depends on your requirement. Then click on launch instance and the EC2 instance is getting created. While it is getting created, let us talk about this Linux SSH. So what happened here? We created one EC2 instance, right? And this EC2 instance is the Linux EC2 instance, right? Obviously, we will have a security group for every EC2 instance. And in the security group, what we have done, we created a rule called allow SSH from anywhere. This is what we have created in the security group. Now, the user needs to log in. Obviously, he use SSH protocol. And the SSH protocol or the SSH traffic from anywhere is getting allowed through the security group. So this user has to use a client called SSH client. Like for RDP, we used a RDP client. For browsing the websites, we used a HTTP or HTTPS client, which is a browser. The same way, to establish the communication using SSH protocol, we have to use SSH client. If your laptop or from which machine you are trying to log into the Linux machine, if that is a Linux or Mac OS, by default, you will get SSH client in those machines, a terminal. But for Windows machines, your Windows machine doesn't know what is SSH client and all. So you have to download and install any of your favorite SSH client. And if you ask me, what are the popular SSH client tools? The most popular one is a Putty, then Mobaxter, and so on. There are n number of tools. You can use any of your favorite. And this is a free. You can download and you can install it. So what happens whenever, let us say this is a SSH client. This is SSH client. So whenever the user send a request, to log in. Security group will allow because traffic is SSH and the security group, the SSH traffic is getting allow. Then it will enter and it will communicate with operating system. Immediately, the operating system will ask the user to authenticate. In the Windows machine, what is the authentication mechanism? Username plus password combination, right? But for the Linux, this authentication method by default disabled on AWS platform. The user cannot log in using username plus password. What is the other way? We can only log in using username plus private key. What is a private key? We have a key pair, right? We used a key pair at the time of creating the EC2 instance. What is the key pair? Key pair is the combination of public plus private key. At the time of EC2 instance creation, whatever the key pair we have selected, this public key will be placed here so that whenever the user is trying to log in, he has to use the corresponding private key in .ppk format. Corresponding private key so that whenever he try to log in, the operating system will validate that whatever the private key is used by the user is matching, is the proper or corresponding private key for the key pair. Then he will be able to log in. By default, username and password combination is disabled on all Linux EC2 instances by default. Okay, now we have a key pair, right? Let me go to the key pair. This is the key pair which we downloaded at the time of Windows EC2 instance creation. Right? And what is the format? .pem. So by default, the putty tool, whatever the putty tool we are going to use, that doesn't support .pem. We need .ppk. So first thing we need to download, okay, I can say log into Linux machine using username and private key combination. So first thing we need to download and install any SSH client tool, or I can say SSH client software. The best example is Putty, and the website is putty.org. From that website, we can download and we can install it. Let me show you putty.org. Sorry. putty.org. I clicked wrong. Okay, here it is. Looking for Putty, the software, it's here. Click, right? And here you can see I'm using a Windows machine, so I will download the .msi installer. Click on it. It is getting downloaded. Just that's a 3.7 MB size. The moment once it got downloaded, just we have to install it like how you can install a regular software on your Windows machines. There is no rocket science in installing this putty software and all. Okay, so let me install it. Just click next. And actually, already in my machine, the putty software is there. You have to click next, 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 install. The moment once it got installed, what you can observe is click on start, then type a putty, and you can see there are two tools available. One is a putty and the second one is a putty gen. The moment once you install the downloaded putty software, you will get those two. Let me list out here. The moment we install the putty software, we get the following tools on your computer. What are those? One is a putty and the second one is a putty gen. What are these two? The putty, right? The putty is SSH client can be used to log into Linux machines. What is this putty gen? It is a generator. Putty gen is a public and private key pair generator. But in our case, what we can do is we can get the private key, we can get the private key from the key pair in .ppk format. So we need the private key, right, to log in. So from where we can get the private key? From the existing key pair. So using the PuttyGen software, because the key pair is in .pem format, which we can't use with the Putty tool. But if you have a Linux machine, if you have a Mac, or if you have what we call that, a Movaxtron software, then directly you can use the .pem also. But with the Putty software, we must use the key pair or a private key in the .ppk format. To convert the .pem into .ppk, we can use the PuttyGen. Okay, right. So then what we have to do? Save the private key from key pair in .ppk format using PuttyGen tool. Okay, let us do these two first. Already the Putty software is installed. Let me show you how can we get the key pair. Just type Putty, and where is the PuttyGen? Here is. Let me click on PuttyGen. This is how you will get. Don't generate. I'm not generating a new key. If I generate a new key, it can't be used to log into the Linux machine because there is already a public key and we have to use the corresponding private key. So what I do, I will load the existing private key file by clicking on load. Here it is. I will upload it where it is on my desktop. There is something called a key pair, but I can't see here. Why? The reason is our private key file, our key pair is in .pem format. And here it is only showing Putty private key files .ppk. Here you can see at the bottom right corner. So that's why I will change the file types to all files and it will display the list of all private key files. Let me select the key pair which we have used at the time of instance creation. Then this one, click on save private key. Yes. Let me save Northern California -sep03. Click on save and done. We got the private key. See here, this is the private key. What is the type? Putty private key file, ppk file, .ppk format. Now we have to use this. So how to do that? Log into Linux instance using Putty tool. Using Putty tool. Okay. So how to do that? Click on start. Putty this time, not the PuttyGen. Putty is the actual SSH client. Now, host name or IP address. Host name in the sense equivalent a name to that particular IP address. So if I go to our EC2, I guess our EC2 instance might be ready. Here is the one, right? So you can use this public IP address or we can use this public DNS name. This is nothing but a kind of a host name. Okay, let me copy the public IP address. First, I will show you the wrong way. Click on open. Then it will ask me to enter the username. What is the username? EC2-user. What happened here? We got an error. The no supported authentication methods available. Generally, if the password combination works, then immediately it will display, please enter the password for the user called EC2-user. Unfortunately, on our Linux EC2 instances, there is no authentication method called username plus password combination. That's why at the time of logging in, we must attach the private key. so that the server, the EC2 instance, validate and it will allow the login if the private key is a correct private key. So where we need to attach or where we need to provide the private key. So on the left side, you can see SSH, right? Click on plus, expand it. Then something called AUTH, authentication, expand the authentication. Then you can see something called credentials. Select the credentials. Then the first button, browse, first browse. What is that? Private key file for authentication. Click on browse and select the private key file, this one, right? Then click on open, click on open. But here the font is too small. So before clicking on open, what I do is I will go back to appearance here. I will increase the font size so that you guys can see the fonts and everything clearly. Just click on open. See here, now I got a bigger window with a bigger font size. What is the username? EC2-user. Authenticating with public key. So what are the private key I have attached? It is verified that the corresponding private key we attached or not. If the pair of public and private keys, public key is already available on the Linux EC2 instance, right? If they are getting matched, it will allow you to log in like this. See here. Now, Linux, you guys know, right? So everything is going to be the commands. So just I will execute like a 2 or 3 small commands, right? Anybody knows any command which we can execute on Linux machine? Any basic command. No, I am not asking about something to install or something. Any basic commands you guys know which we can execute on Linux? LS. Okay. What is LS? It is not displaying anything. The reason is, okay, before doing the LS, let us do something called PWD. There is a there is something called PWD, a command. What is the PWD? Anybody knows? Even if you're at least you should know some Linux basics, especially if you're planning for DevOps or something. Linux basics are mandatory. So at the time of learning the Linux, don't by heart the commands. Never ever by heart the commands. You can't remember the commands. Okay, what I said a command called PWD. What is the meaning of the PWD? You can say present working directory. Means in which directory right now I am in. That is the meaning of present working directory. Or print working directory. In which working directory I am in. That is what the print working directory. Both are correct. Okay, right. So let me make it more simple. Let us say, okay, right now I'm in this particular place, right? What is my present working directory? In which directory right now I am in? I think the screen is clearly visible, right? The fonts and everything. User, no? Okay, let us say, what do we call that? Assume you are in your house. Okay, your house number is 101. Your house number is 101. If I want to send a letter to you, if I write the address as 101, will you be able to receive that letter? No, right? No, you have to enter, you have to mention the complete address of your house. Then only I can send you a letter or anything. The same way, what is the current working directory? In which directory right now I'm in means, here you can see, in the C drive, there is a folder called users. Then there is a folder called PONNA. Then there is a folder called documents. That is my current working directory. In that directory right now I am in. Okay. So in the same way, let me execute that PWD. What is showing? Right now, I am in the location or a directory called /home/EC2-user. Okay, if you are not aware of a Linux, you might see, okay, where is the C colon or a D colon or something, right? In the Linux, The slash is the top level directory. The slash is the top level. Like if you want to tell your address, right? First, what you have to do, you need to mention that, okay, I'm in India. Then you are in so and so state. Then I'm in so and so district. Then in Mandal, right? So India is the top level for us, right? The same way, the slash is the root, which is a starting point, like our C colon, right? If I show you something here, you can see C is a drive. There is a top level in Windows for the root C drive, C drive. The same way here slash. In the slash, there is a directory called home. In that, there is a directory called EC2-user. That directory right now I am in. LS means, what is the LS? LS means list files. It will display the list of files available in that particular directory. Unfortunately, there is no files exist. There is no files exist in that directory. That's why it is showing nothing. Okay, let me see. There is a command called a cd, right? There is a command called cd. What is the cd? Cd command in Linux. Change directory. Change directory means right now I am in slash home slash EC2-user, but I want to change to a different directory. Let us say slash. Then what I have to do? Cd space slash. Means right now I am at slash level. If I say pwd, see here. Okay. If I do ls, it will display the list of files, folders, everything, content, everything will be displayed. There is something called ll also. Ll. What is the difference between ls and ll? Ls will give you the name of the content, whereas ll will give you who is the owner, at what time it was created, right? September 5th, size of the file, size of the directory, and the permissions. Who can read, who can write, every piece of information you can see here. Okay. Now, let us say I want to install something. If I ask you to install a simple software on a Windows machine, what we do? What already we did? We downloaded, double clicked, next, 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 next. That's it, right? In the Linux machine, there is something called yum. There is something called yum repository. There's a repository from where we can install the packages and everything. Just I would like to show something. I want to generally in the Windows machine, every month Windows will release, Microsoft will release some updates, patches, and everything. We will go to Windows Update, check updates, install it, right? The same way on the Linux using yum, we have a command called yum update, so that it will update the repositories. Then we can do something called yum upgrade. So automatically all the pending things, pending updates will be installed. If I do yum update, what happened here? I got an error. What is this error? This command has to be run with super user privileges. Means you must be the root user or you must be the user who has administrator permissions. Okay, now with which user I logged in? With which user I logged in to the Linux machine? Did I log in with a user called Krishna, or did I logged in with a user called something like Mahesh or something? With which user I logged in? Sudo is not the user. I will get that to the sudo in some time. My question is, with which user we logged into this Linux machine? I mean, at the time of logging in, what is the username we entered? Not EC2. This is the username. EC, not admin. Admin is not the username in this case. We entered the username as EC2-user. Username is EC2-user. Okay. How to check? How to check with which user we logged in? Is there any command? Is there any command to check with which user we logged in? Yes, there is. That is who am I? Without any spaces, just type who am I. Press enter. Here is the username. Generally, in the Linux machines, the default administrator is the root user. The default administrator is the root user. But here, there is no option to log in as a root user directly. You cannot log in as a root user directly to these Linux EC2 instances. But whatever the user we logged in, he is the administrator. He has complete admin permissions. But still, he is unable to execute this command. The reason is he is not the default administrator. He is not the default administrator. He is a normal user to whom administrator permissions has been granted. For and there is something called a sudoers concept. Sudoers means there is a file called sudoers file. Whoever the user is a part of that particular file will get administrator permissions, like admin group, a kind of an admin group. For that reason, for all non-default administrators must use a sudo in front of every command like this. Sudo space yum space update. Sudo space yum space update. Let me press enter. Now let's see what happens. This time, without any error, we should be able to complete this command execution. See here, it checked the repository, dependencies resolved, nothing to do, complete. Means there is no pending updates to do. Okay, right. Let us say I want to install something, some package. And the command is yum install the package name. Let us say httpd. I'm doing without sudo. Immediately I got an error. Now let me use the same command like sudo space yum install space httpd. There's a package, a simple web server package, just to show you the importance of the sudo. See here, the moment once I hit, it resolved what all are going to be installing. The 12 packages to be installed, including the dependencies, and total download size is going to be the 2.3 M, 2.3 MB, and installed size is going to be 7 MB approximately. Is this okay for you? Yes. So I will press Y and press enter. What happened is simple web server got installed with a default web page, with a default website. We did not written any web page and all, right? But there is a default web page which got installed. For that, how to access anything? Using the public IP address, right? So here, the public IP address of the EC2 instance is this 54.177.31.251. If I hit that in the browser, I'm not able to load the web page. But I am sure the website is running a default web page like welcome to Apache or welcome to HTTP server, kind of a default web page. But here, I'm unable to load the web page. Can anyone guess the reason why? Anyone guess? Any wild guesses why we are unable to access? There is nothing wrong in guessing something, right? Okay. What happens? Assume it is a browser, right? User's browser. What he did, he tried accessing the public IP using the browser. Using which protocol? HTTP protocol. Using HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol is running on 80 port. The request will receive it by the security group first. It will check the rules. In the rules, it is only allowing SSH traffic. There is no rule to allow HTTP. That's why that's why the user is unable to load the web page. Simple thing. We will see. So how can we allow this HTTP traffic, or can we assign multiple security groups? All these things we can see one by one. We will cover. Okay, right. So here what we have done, we created a Linux EC2 instance, right? We created a Linux EC2 instance, and also we have seen how to log in to the Linux EC2 instance using the PuTTY tool. So now I will do exit. It got disconnected. This is one way. This is one way that we can log into any Linux EC2 instance. There is an alternate way. There is an alternate way to log in to the Linux machine. There is an alternate way. What is the alternate way? Log into the Linux EC2 instance using Instance Connect. Instance Connect or EC2 Connect feature. Nothing to install, nothing to do. Just I will show you. Just see here. Select the Linux EC2 instance to which you would like to log in. Select that. Click on Connect. There is something called EC2 Instance Connect, right? Select this tab. Click on Connect. With the help of a browser, you can, what we call that, log into the Linux machine. No need to install any client or something. But in the real time, we don't use this EC2 Instance Connect. We always use a client, as such client tool. But there is a way, that's why I'm showing you. And there are few other things like session manager, somewhat like advanced thing. Once we are done with the session manager, what we call that, there is something called systems manager. In that topic, we will talk about this session manager. What is this session manager and all? It also works same as a EC2 Instance Connect, but with more security. Like same browser we can use, just you can click on Connect. For that, we need to install something called SSM agent to be installed on the Linux EC2 instance. Then using the browser itself, you can log into the Linux machine. But for now, focus on the SSH client, which we have seen already, and EC2 Instance Connect. Okay, right. So before continuing with the other features on the EC2, are you guys clear with the EC2 topic and the process of creation and how to log in? You guys clear or any questions? If you have any questions, just ask me the question so that we can take up those questions and then we can continue. Okay, it seems everyone is clear. If you have a question, if you don't want to chat box to ask a question, just click on the raise hand button so that you can unmute and you can ask the question. If you guys are clear, then we can continue with a small concept on the EC2 itself. Okay, if you remember what I said, what is the feature of auto assign public IP, how it behaves? What is the feature or behavior auto assign public IP? The public IP will get changed whenever you stop and start the EC2 instance. So I can say will change when the EC2 instance gets stopped and a start. It is completely different from restart. If you stop and start, then you will get a new public IP, which means every time you stop and start the EC2 instance, EC2 instance will get a new public IP address. What is the challenge with this? What is the challenge with this? Any guess? Let us say this is the EC2 instance, right? And this is the public IP address of the EC2 instance, right? What is the challenge? If the public IP address is getting changed every time you stop and start the EC2 instance. Let us say here, the website is running. Everyone from across the globe are accessing the website, and the website is accessible with the help of a public IP. What if the public IP got changed? They can't access this machine unless you inform everybody about the new IP address. In such cases, our EC2 instances must need a static IP address, fixed public IP address. That's why Amazon is offering an IP address called elastic IP address. Elastic IP address. What is this elastic IP address? It is a static public IP address. Static in the sense fixed public IP address will never ever changes automatically. Means even if you stop and start the EC2 instance will get the same public IP address. That is the advantage. But there are some conditions about the charges. There are some conditions. That means it is not completely free. That doesn't mean it is a chargeable. Elastic IP address is chargeable if we don't attach to any running EC2 instance. So here there are different phases to get the elastic IP. Different of phases to use the elastic IP address. What are those? The first one is allocate, then is allocate, then attach. Attach, detach, then release. What are these things? Allocate in the sense we will request AWS and they will allocate an elastic IP to your account. Means IP address is available in your AWS account, but it is not assigned to any EC2 instance. It will be kept idle. It will be kept idle. Attach in the sense, what we call that? Assign the elastic IP address to any EC2 instance. Detach in the sense, remove the IP address from EC2 instance and kept unused. Release in the sense, any guess what might be the release? Opposite to the allocate. Give back the elastic IP to AWS. In these cases, what exactly are chargeable? So here, let us say you clicked on allocate button so that Amazon will allocate you an elastic IP address. But at Amazon, don't know that for which EC2 instance you are requesting the elastic IP. So they will simply keep the elastic IP in your account. And if you don't attach the elastic IP address to any running EC2 instance, then they will charge you. But if you attach, if you don't keep the elastic IP unused in your account, and if you attach to any running EC2 instance, then the elastic IP address is a free of cost. Detach means disconnecting or removing the elastic IP from the EC2 instance, but still that is available in your AWS account. Release in the sense you will give it back to the AWS and you can't get the same IP again. Whenever you request allocate, they will assign a new elastic IP. So first thing, what we are going to do is let us observe the behavior of auto assign public IP. Note down the public IP of EC2 instance, then stop and start the EC2 instance. Then what we have to observe the public IP of the EC2 instance and confirm that a new IP has been assigned, because That's how the auto assign public IPs works, right? Okay, what is the public IP address? What is the public IP address of our EC2 instance? Let me do a quick refresh here. So here is the public IP. Let me note down, right? Okay, now how to stop it? Select the Linux EC2 instance, instance state, stop instance, click on stop. Means we are stopping the EC2 instance, like shutting down the EC2 instance. But still, the EC2 instance is available in your AWS account. Still, the AWS account, the EC2 instance is available in your AWS account. Okay, here is the private IP, right? Few people might get a question like, what about the private IP? Is it going to be a fixed or is it going to change? Private IPs are always fixed. Okay, what is the state of the EC2 instance? Stop. The moment once the EC2 instance got stopped, what happened to the public IP? The public IP address is taken back by AWS to save the IP addresses. If I create 1,000 EC2 instances and if I keep them stopped, I'm blocking 1,000 public IP addresses because IPs are limited, right? Public IPs are limited. You can't get unlimited. Okay, now let me start. How to start? Select the EC2 instance which you would like to start, instance state and start instance. So it will take like 2 to 3 minutes of time. Here, I would like to mention a note point. Auto assigned public IPs never change if we reboot, restart or reboot the EC2 instance. Instead of a start and stop, if you restart or reboot, public IPs will never change. While you're doing the practical, just check this scenario also. Okay, right. So instance state is running and here public IP. Wait, here is the public IP. Let me note down. Let me note down the private IP also. See here, private IPs will never change, but the public IP got changed whenever we stop and start EC2 instance. So now I have a special requirement from my organization or a product team that the EC2 instance must have a fixed public IP address. In such cases, we have to use elastic IP address. So I will say use elastic IP address for the EC2 instance and confirm that it is fixed even we stop and start the instances. Okay, so what are the steps here is first we need to allocate the elastic IP, then attach the EIP. Elastic IP address is also known as EIP. Attach the EIP to EC2 instance, then stop and start the EC2 instance. Then we can verify. Then we need to avoid unnecessary charges, right? So release the elastic IP to avoid unnecessary charges. So here, what is the first step? First, we need to detach the elastic IP, then release the elastic IP. Without detaching, you can't release it. While it is attached with some EC2 instance, you can't give back that to the AWS. Let us see here. First thing, we need to allocate the elastic IP because in my account, I don't have any elastic IPs available. I don't have any elastic IPs available. So first I need to get an elastic IP. How to get? In the same EC2 service, if you scroll down a little bit, there is a module called network and security. In that network and security, click on elastic IPs. How many elastic IPs do we have? No elastic IPs. So here click on allocate elastic IP address. Let me use a tag. Tag is for identification purpose. For my web server, some meaningful name. click on allocate. What is the IP address? This is the IP address, elastic IP. Let me copy. Let me note down. This is the elastic IP. Now we need to attach that to the EC2 instance. How? Attach or associate, both are same. Attach or associate. So select the elastic IP. Okay, let me go back. Let me show you a step by step again. So the moment once you are in the EC2, scroll down, click on elastic IPs under network and security. So here is the elastic IP. Select the elastic IP, actions, associate, which is nothing but attach, and instance. Here click and select the instance to which you would like to associate, and then click on associate, and done. Now if I go back to the instances, just do a simple refresh. What is the public IP address now for the EC2 instance? 13.57.138.242. Now let's stop and start to verify and to confirm that the elastic IPs are going to be the fixed IP addresses. They will never change if you stop and start the EC2 instance. So I'm stopping the EC2 instance. While you're doing this practical, don't leave in the middle, because if you stop the instance and if you don't release the elastic IP, keeping the elastic IP idle, you will be charged. Per hour, you will be charged. Every hour, you will be charged. Okay, it just stopped, right? Now let me start again. Select the EC2 instance. Instance state, start instance. Instance state pending, instance state running. What is the IP? The same 13.57.138.242. Okay, now how to release? I'm done with the work. So if I terminate the EC2, let's say how to terminate, select the EC2 instance, instance state, and terminate, right? What happens? Our EC2 instance will get deleted, but the elastic IP address still exists in the backend, and Amazon will start charging you for keeping the elastic IP unused. For that reason, my recommendation is before terminating, I recommend to release it. How to release? Go to the same elastic IPs, select the elastic IP, and you can check this elastic IP address is associated. How? Just scroll aside. It is associated with an EC2 instance, which is having this instance ID ends with 1E0E. Means to this EC2 instance, it is associated. That's how you can identify. Okay, select it. Actions. There is something called a disassociate elastic IP address. Select that. Click on disassociate. Just wait for few seconds. Won't take much. Okay, refresh and drag aside. Can you see any associated instance ID? No, means it is disassociated from the EC2 instance. Now, if I go back to the EC2 instance, what happens? Your EC2 instance will get a new IP address because I removed the elastic IP. Okay, let us go back to the elastic IP and let us release it to avoid unnecessary charges. Select the elastic IP, actions. There is an option called release elastic IP address. Click it and release, and it's gone. You release the elastic IP from your AWS account, and AWS got their elastic IP back to them, and they will use it for something else. This is how you can get rid of the elastic IPs. Okay, right. So I think you got the importance of the elastic IP. Whenever you need a fixed public IP address for your EC2 instance, you have to use the elastic IP. If there is no requirement of a fixed public IP, then just you can go with auto assign public IP and no need to worry about the charges. Right. So any questions? Any questions? Anybody else having any questions? So actually I pinned a YouTube playlist in the Telegram. So unfortunately, I guess we missed recording two sessions. One is AWS account creation and the previous session. like EC2 instance creation for Windows machines, but we have a Linux machine recording today's session, so you can correlate with Windows and you can do it. Especially for the global infrastructure and AWS account creation, that session got missed. I forgot to click on record button. So what I do is I separately record a video about global infrastructure and how to create a AWS account, and I will upload mostly by this weekend. During the weekdays, I can't record or I can't get that much time. But the remaining topics, all the things I'm going to upload to the same YouTube playlist, which you can click the link and you can go through the videos and you can get some concept while you are doing, I mean, a quick overview or a quick review before starting the practicals. Okay, right. So yeah, any questions? Mhm. And I will collect your, I think I have your email addresses. What I do is I will add you guys to the Google Classroom. So where I can upload these task list and all the things, okay? So that it will be easy for you to do the practice, right? Like what tasks to be done and how you can implement that and all the things, right? I will upload these notepads and everything to the Google Classroom or at least a Google Drive and just I can share with you guys. I think this one might be good. So it's a public access, right? Anybody can see the notepad without having logging in and all. I will do something like a GitHub repository, right? And I will upload all these things once we are done with the class. So just directly you can access the URL and you can see the class notes, task sheet, and all the things. I think that should be a good idea. Yeah. Okay, I will share that link also in the Telegram only. Okay. No need to add everyone individually. Just click the link and uh, browse it. Okay. Any questions? How many of you at least created the new AWS account or at least started with IAM topic, like creating the users or something? If not, just at least start today. Start from today onwards, or else it's not that much easy to remember the concepts. Immediately, if you complete the practicals, then it will be easy for you to remember the actual concept. And also, while you're doing the practicals, don't follow the steps blindly. Okay, just try to understand why we are choosing that option or why we are doing in this way, why not in a different way. Just try to explore the different ways. Even if you are getting errors, that's not an issue. From the errors, you can learn a lot of things. Okay, so if you guys are clear, let's stop the session here and let's continue tomorrow. Tomorrow also we'll go with the same EC2 and we'll cover a few other things. Okay, right. Thank you everyone. We'll continue tomorrow.